Good evening, friends. Welcome to the talk on Cyano processing by Mr. Ashok Viswanathan. Thanks, Ashok, for accepting our invitation to give a talk on this cyanotype processing. Cyanotype is a photographic printing process that produces a cyan blueprint. Engineers used the process well into the 20th century as a simple and low-cost process to produce copies of drawings referred to as blueprints. We will hear from Ashok Viswanathan what is cyanotype processing and how to do it. And Ashok Viswanathan is a long-time member of PSM. Work took him away from Chennai, and now after retirement, he is back in PSM for the last 3 years. And his photography started in the film days of early 70s, and presently uses Fuji XE3. He also shoots on film with his twin lens Rolleiflex. His present interest is black and white, but he enjoys the richness and flexibility of digital color. He uses Affinity Photo and Next for his processing, and his works are exhibited in several national and international exhibitions. He is now exploring alternative techniques from the mid 1800s, such as cyanotypes, brom oil, gum bichromate, gum oil, etc., using large format internegative. It looks like some chemistry class to me. And he enjoys shooting travel, portraits, seascapes, landscapes, pictorial, and fine art. He is a member of Photographic Society of Madras, Photographic Society of India, Federation of Indian Photography, and the Royal Photographic Society. He gained FFIP in 2017, followed by EFIAP in 2019. His work has been published in various photographic magazines. More recently, several of his images and text on Theyyam, The Dance of the Gods, was featured on the Royal Photographic Society International page. During the COVID-19 lockdown, he made his first YouTube video, Spring 2020, a collaboration with Kala Ramesh and R. Chaurasia on the flute. His webpage, pbase.com, Chabix, recently crossed 1 million hits. Congratulations on this achievement, Ashok. And now the floor is yours, Ashok. Welcome, and
thank you.
Let's hear from Ashok Viswanathan. What is cyanotype processing?
Okay. Can you see this? Balu, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we are able to see.
Okay, right. Thank you, Balu, and thank you for this opportunity to show the PSM members my work. I hope you find it interesting. A little bit about the background. I got interested in this a few years ago because I was in Italy and I was taking a walk behind the hotel in Florence when I saw a signboard which said there's a photographic exhibition of old prints. So I walked in there and I had a look, and it was quite interesting. The whole place was completely dark, and they had spotlighted various images. And these are all a huge collection of prints from the 1850s to the early 1900s. And that collection must have been worth a few $1 million, you know. But they were all, various types of photography right from the early days of the 1850s. And that's when I got interested and said, it'd be interesting to try this. And then it was idle for a while. And then a couple of years ago, again, I looked into it. And I said, why not? And then this Corona came along, and sitting at home, this was the best opportunity to do something interesting. So that's how I got into cyanotypes. Now, I would, of course, explain how it's done. And it's quite simple once you try it, and you can, in fact, try it at home. But the important thing is that you need to be a little careful with the chemicals. And it's a very interesting process because each time you try it, you get different results. So let's have a look. 1 second. This process was started in 1842 by John Herschel. And it's basically no silver, and it's sensitive to UV light. Now, this is more or less about 3 years after Fox Talbot announced his process. And it became very popular because John Herschel was in the UK. He's a British national. And just down the road, there was a lady called Anna Atkins, who was also a friend. And she heard about this process, and she used it to identify and illustrate books on botany, identifying plants, purely by their shapes. So she produced a few books which are in libraries and museums today. And each page is an original print. So that's how it became popular. Later on, of course, other processes came in and this died because other processes were much easier and they gave more tones, and then black and white was born. But more recently, there are some artists now who have gone back into cyanotypes. And if you go on Facebook, there are groups who are actually doing some very good work on alternative images using cyanotypes and various other processes. And it's a great learning experience because they are very helpful. At the same time, you can also get to see how it's done and talk to people who actually do it around the world. But as of now, there are not many people in India. There are only, as far as I know, maybe 4 or 5 people who have got into this process because it's a little bit slow to do and takes a bit of patience. So now basically this is what Anna Atkins was doing, objects and shapes. She put plants on a piece of paper that was coated with a chemical and exposed it. And what you see on the right is the image that comes on the paper. And using that blue image, she described the plants and the characteristics, the shape, color, etc. So you could actually see what it looked like. And that's how she produced these books on botany, by simply cutting plants and flowers and putting them on sheets of paper and exposing them to light. Now, obviously, the longer you expose it, the darker it gets. But the thing with cyanotypes is that there is no correct thing as correct exposure. You can have a whole variety of images with different colors and strength of images. You can do the same thing with objects and shapes, not necessarily with flowers. You can do it with glass, ceramic, anything that's got a shape. You know, even a keychain, you can just put it on a piece of paper and expose it to light, and you get an image. Now, what do you need to do it? You need basically an inkjet printer. Now, I use a very cheap inkjet printer, which is an Epson L110, which costs about 6,000 or 7,000 rupees. And all you need is that it should be able to print black and some decent quality of printing. So you don't need an expensive printer. You need an inkjet film suitable for making internegatives. Now, but I'll come back to this a little later. And there are 2 chemicals that you have to mix in part A and part B. You need to keep them separate and only mix them when you need them because they only stay for about an hour or so. These chemicals can be dangerous if you're not careful, but under normal circumstances, they're perfectly safe. You need to get a foam brush to coat the paper, and I'll show you what it looks like. You can buy these foam brushes on Amazon, India. They're very cheap, maybe, I don't know, a couple of 100 rupees or something like that. So you can buy these foam brushes to coat the paper. You should not use any brush which has the metal on it. You know, the kind that you find in your kitchen, because the metal reacts with the chemicals and it gets patches. So it has to be purely foam. We need to find a paper to coat it and to make it light sensitive. Now, there are various papers that will work. So you need to find something that you like and something that works. Usually you need to pick up a paper that can be put into water, that will not disintegrate, you know, because when it's processed through washing in water, normal paper will tend to, you know, break up. So you need a paper that is strong enough to stay while washing in the water. Now, the best papers for this is usually the handmade or the watercolor papers. Watercolor papers are the best choice. And the imported papers are even better. Like I'll show you what paper I use. You need a plastic tray to wash the prints with just simply water under a tap. So a plastic tray to, you know, put your prints, wash it for 10 minutes, and then you can pull it out to dry. And you need a contact printing frame, or you need some way of keeping the negative flat. You can, of course, buy a contact printing frame. That I use a very simple frame, which is basically a sheet of glass on a piece of wooden sheet. And the glass is enough to keep it flat. And you need a source of UV light. Now, the best source of UV light is, of course, daylight. But knowing how things are with daylight, you can never be sure that it is consistent. Suddenly, you'll find there's a cloud that's come in the middle, and then your exposure goes all wrong, you know. So it becomes difficult. So you need to find a source of UV light that is consistent, but has a proper light level, and which will give you a short enough exposure time. because with daylight, it can be 10 minutes, it can be 1 hour, it can even be 10 hours. It just depends on how much UV there is and how bright the light is. But we'll come back to the UV in a couple of slides later. This is what you need: a light source, which is the light you see there. I found this light source actually on Amazon.com in the US, and it's perfect for something like cyanotypes or any kind of alternative printing, because it gives you UV light, it's consistent and safe, and you can easily handle it. So I searched around, did some research, and I finally found it's made in Delhi. So I tracked it back to this manufacturer in Delhi, and I spoke to him, and he's a small-scale industrial guy. And he was very happy. He said, I'll supply you this light box, and it's available in different wattages. I use a 40-watt bulb because that more or less gives you enough light. So your exposures are about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, not too long. And it cost very little. It cost me something like 3,500 rupees for the light. And if you order it, he sends it to you in about 3-4 days, nicely packed. And you just plug it in and you use it. Now, the only thing with this UV light is you have to make sure that you don't make it point directly into your eyes, because you spoil your eyesight. And as far as possible, keep your hands and skin away from the light. But so long as you are fixing in such a way that you can expose the paper without you coming in the way, it works quite well. The foam brush is what you see below, what I mentioned that you can buy on Amazon. These are a couple of ₹100. They come in different sizes. You need a foam brush because that absorbs the liquid, and then it spreads the liquid very evenly on the paper. I use the wide one, which is about 2 inches, and it takes me about maybe 3, 4, or 5 minutes, to coat the paper. And on the right, what you see is my contact printing frame, which is simply a sheet of glass and a wooden base with some Formica on it. Costs very little. Now here you need to be careful, because nowadays if you go and buy glass, the glass is treated either by the manufacturer so that UV cannot pass through. Same thing with Perspex. So if the UV cannot pass through, you cannot expose your print. So you need to make sure that the glass you get is not coated for UV protection. This glass actually belongs to a picture frame, old picture frame, which I just broke up and used, So, but you can buy a regular sheet of glass. This is an 8x10 sheet because I make A4 prints. So it fits nicely. It's not too big. You can easily handle it. This is what you need. There are 2 parts to the solution, part A and part B. Part A is 10 grams of ferric ammonium citrate. You get 2 types. You have to ask for the green type, which you mix in 50 milliliters of water. And then solution B, which is 4 grams potassium ferricyanide. You mix it in 50 milliliters of water. Now, the thing with potassium ferricyanide is that you have to be very careful to ensure that it does not come into contact with any acid, because if it comes into contact, it will generate cyanide gas, which is what you die from if you get cyanide gas. So you have to be a little careful, but otherwise it's harmless. You can wash your hands if you get some of it on your hand. You store it in 2 separate dark brown bottles, and they stay for many months. My supply was made almost 2 years ago and is still working. And if you get some sludge, which floats on the top of the bottle after a period of time, you can just filter it and remove it and use the liquid again. And for use, you mix equal parts A and B and use it within 1 hour, because they react. When part A and part B combines, they become sensitive to light. So you have to use it in a room which is not dark, but at least dim, and where you do not have direct sunlight. And you can coat it with an ordinary light bulb. That's quite okay. Coat it and put the sheets to dry in a dark place. I normally coat it on my writing table, then I put the sheets inside the drawer, and they dry in about 1.5 or 2 hours. And they dry with a nice yellow coating, So once they're dry, you can make a print. But once they're dry, they don't stay for very long. If you coat it, it's best to use it the same day, or otherwise the next day. But beyond that, they don't work properly. So you coat only enough for maybe 3, 4, 5 sheets at a time, so that they can dry and then you can use them. If you take roughly about 5 milliliters of solution, it will coat about 3 to 4 A4 sheets. So if you want to do more, of course, you mix more solution or you mix it again. But you need to mix it very accurately, so you can use either some fine way of measuring it or anything, so long as it's equal quantities. That's all that matters. Now, if you can make up the chemicals by buying the chemical from a chemist and mixing it, you can buy them. There are these chemist shops in Paris Corner or Beach area that supply lab chemicals. There's another guy where I go, which is opposite Vivekananda College. There's a road. If you go down that, there's a chemical guy on the right side. And he has everything. If he doesn't have it, he'll get it for you. And he has them in fairly small quantities also. And it's far, far cheaper than trying to buy a ready-made kit. But if you don't want to do all that and you want the easy way out, you can buy a ready-made kit, which is the cyanotype kit part A and part B by Jacquard, which is available on Amazon. Only thing is, it's a little more expensive. It's about 1,600 or 1,800 for the set, but it'll make roughly about 50 prints A4. So entirely up to you. If you want to do it cheap, you just buy the chemical. It's only one chemical you need and mix it. Or if you don't want to do that, you buy the kit and you can mix it, pour water and mix it. Now paper. Now this is where it becomes critical. I use a Canadian paper called Canson Montreal watercolor paper. I've experimented with various papers, but talking to a lot of people who do cyanotypes, most of them tend to use Canson Montreal. Now, there are two kinds. They come hot pressed and cold pressed. Hot pressed is very smooth, the surface. So what happens is, it's very nice paper, but the chemical does not stick onto the surface so easily. Whereas cold press has got a slight pattern, like a kind of a matte finish, and the chemical stays on it. What you need to buy also is what's called 100% cellulose. And 300, you can buy them as 300 GSM fine grain, which is heavy paper, or you can buy it as 240 GSM. But the paper has to be fairly thick, because it has to survive washing in water. But watercolor papers are designed for water, so they tend to work quite well. They're not that expensive. When you can buy, I think for 500 rupees, you get about 12 or 15 sheets of A4. There's also what's known as 100% cotton rag paper. Various makes are available, but so long as it's 100% cotton rag, it'll work. You can also use fabric to make cyanotypes, and you might have seen people wearing T-shirts, with a photograph of themselves or with a blue kind of a background. Those are all cyanotype T-shirts, where they dip the T-shirt in a bucket of cyanotype solution and then print it and just dry it and wash it and give it to you. And you can also make those at home, Then you can go and buy the paper in a place called Hindustan Trading. That's in Chennai. It's near Lloyd's Road, near the corner. It's a very well-known shop that sells artist materials, watercolors, papers, brushes, all that. So they've got a big choice of papers. So you can just go and buy whatever paper you like in whatever size. You can also buy them in small sizes just to try. Now, if you want to get to the film now, I use what's called an internegative film. It's the best ones in the world are Pictorio or Permajet. Pictorio is extremely expensive. It's available only in the US on Amazon, and it's terribly expensive. Permajet is a better option, but that will cost you something like, I think, last time I bought it was about, I think, 60 pounds for 100 sheets or something like that in London. But I found later on there's something called PossyJet DB, which is made by Technova in India. And it's a superb product. And it comes in rolls and cut sheets. You can pick it up by speaking to the dealer for Technova. The cut sheets are a little difficult to find because this is mainly used for fabric printing in the automotive industry, paint industry, etc. So they prefer rolls. But you can either buy them ready cut sometimes, or you can buy the roll and cut it yourself. But Technova makes various types of inkjet paper, inkjet film. So you have to pick up what's called PossyJet DB. They also make another type of film, but that's not suitable because it's coated to prevent ultraviolet transmission. So if you pick up that, you will never be able to make a print because it doesn't allow the ultraviolet light to go pass through. So Posigen DB is the best option. This is the paper I use. It's Canadian, it's imported into India. And I believe Technova are the agents for it, but you can buy them in Hindustan Trading or any of these shops that deal with art papers. You can also buy it on Amazon. And if you see, this is an A5 packet which I use because it works out more convenient and more economical because you can do two negatives or two prints on one sheet of A4 paper, or you can buy A5, which is half an A4, more or less 5x7 prints you can make. And it says here clearly, it says cold pressed, fine grain, and you can buy these watercolor papers. Now, when you come to coating the paper, you have to use the foam brush after you mix the liquid within 1 hour. When you pick up the liquid in the brush, you have to make sure that the excess liquid is removed, in the sense that the liquid should not be flowing on your paper. It should only come from the brush smoothly. And you coat left to right and top to bottom, so that you get an even coating across the paper. You can easily see that because when you tilt the paper slightly against the light, you'll be able to see places where the coating is not even. So you just take the brush and go over it again. But what you also need to do is leave a margin, because it helps you to sort of handle the paper, And so otherwise you get fingerprints on the coated area. So you'll also get a nice white margin if you don't coat the edges. So I normally leave about ½ an inch or so around it. So it's easy to handle, and also when it dries, it looks nice. You get a white border. So that's one thing. Coating is a bit of an art. When you try it in the beginning, I had a lot of trouble with it, mainly because I got patches and it didn't coat evenly and all kinds of technical problems. And then, of course, I was talking to people about it. And then with some practice, now I can coat it pretty well. You learn the art of coating it, because not to put too much liquid, to have even pressure. You can't have too little pressure or too much pressure. The pressure has to be even throughout the paper. But that comes with practice, so that's not a problem. You'll learn it. Basically, the important thing is ensure there's no pooling on the paper. Now, when you say pooling, what it means is liquid, free-flowing liquid, like a drops of water onto the paper. That should not happen, because it leaves a big patch, and that patch will not go. So you have to make sure there's no pooling. Leave a margin and coat in dim light. It will dry in about 2-3 hours, but normally it's safer for you to keep it for 4 hours to make sure it's completely dry. Now, when you're doing this, you must be sure, because if it's not dry, the paper will stick to your negative. And when you're printing, and then you spoil your negative and you spoil your print also. The negative will be useless, you'll have to throw it away. So you have to make sure it's completely dry. As it dries, the paper becomes sensitive to light. Okay, so what you need to do is make sure you dry it in a dark place, like a cupboard, or like I use my drawer. I have one drawer which is empty, where I just put these papers in to dry for 3-4 hours. So it works quite well. And I use it the same day. If I coat it in the morning, I normally make prints by lunchtime or the afternoon. At the most, the next morning, because beyond that, it doesn't stay for some reason. When it is dry, you need to see that you get a nice yellow coating on the paper. If you have coated it correctly, if you have mixed it correctly, the paper will have a nice, beautiful, smooth yellow color on it. There's no restriction on print size. There are people who have made cyanotypes, several feet by several feet. It's simply a matter of how big you want to print. Making internegatives. Now, this is where it's a little tricky, because like all negatives, if a negative is not good, you will not get a good print. So from experience, I've seen that contrasty images work well, because if you see the cyanotypes, it doesn't have too much of middle tones, like our modern black and white prints. It's more of whites and blacks and some gray in between. So if you have contrasty images, they work quite well. Images without too much of fine detail, because there's not breakup of much tones, you cannot have too much of fine detail. Then it gets sort of jumbled up. But there are images which are a little simple, not too much of detail, they work very well. So I'll show you some examples of that. You need to arrange the image screen for composition, contrast, brightness, sharpness, and resize it to whatever size you want to print. Just like you make a normal digital inkjet print, it's exactly the same process, including sharpening. And then I use a 6x4 or an 8x10 to negatives. 8x10 normally is, I find, is a little big, so I prefer 6x4 or 6x5. So you can have two on a page, you know. It's also saving in film and saving in paper. Now that you've got these negatives, you then invert the image to make it a negative, because it has to be negative for it to print. When it prints, it becomes a positive. So before you print your negative, you first invert it, and then you flip it horizontally. Now, if you don't flip it, everything will be back to front. What is left, what you see is left will become right, and right will become left. So to prevent that, you need to flip the negative on the screen before you print. Finally, you convert it to monochrome. Now, there are many ways you can convert to monochrome, and we all have our own ways of converting it. You can do it in Photoshop, Lightroom, etc. But I use Nix because I find that that's what I've been using. It works well for me. But you can use any system you want to convert to monochrome. Then finally, you resize it to A4, center the image, and fill the outside area with black. I'll show you what I mean. The reason to fill the outside area is that when you print, you get a white border. Otherwise, what will happen is your cyanotype will fill the entire paper. It will look like a borderless print. You can do it that way also. I mean, if you like that kind of printing, it's fine. But I like to say, I like a border, so I put a border. And you save it as a JPEG or a PSD file. This is what your negative should look like. Now, these are two negatives on one A4 paper. Now, the black area will print as white, so that will become the border. And these will give me two prints, roughly about 5x7. And the paper is A4, so that's 8.5 by 11.5 approximately. Now, with this border, it's easy for me to handle the print also when it's wet and also when I'm coating it. Now, if you see this negative, the one on the right with the corridors, you will notice there's a lot of shadow detail. You can see the arches, you can see the detail in the shadow. And if you look at the floor, you'll see a black patch in the center. That's actually sunlight coming through a window. So that's your highlight. And all the other tones in the middle are your gray tones. You need to get a negative that looks something like this so that you have a range of tones from black to white. Similarly, look at the left one. It's a silhouette of a tree. So the tree is going to be black. And the sky is a dark sky. So in the sky, you can see, part of it is black, part of it is white, and the grays. So it will print exactly that way. So this is to give you an idea of what the negative should look like. Now, you can have one negative on A4, or you can have two on A4, or four on A4, whatever you like. But I normally tend to print two on A4 because they're easier to handle that way. Now, printing the negative, you basically insert the film into the printer with the dull side facing you. Now, when you use this inkjet paper, inkjet film, you will find that one side is shiny and one side is slightly on dull. It's a little difficult to find out which is the coated side. Now, one way you can do it is that if you lick your finger a little bit and touch the corner of the paper, film, it will be sticky. The sticky side is the coated side, the emulsion side. And the back is the shiny side. So you insert it with the coated side facing you so that it goes through the printer correctly. Some films like Technova, sometimes they come with a small cut on the top right, like the old 5x4 films, and then that tells you that when you hold it up and you get a notch on the top right, that means the coated side is facing you. Now, it's always better to use gloves or wash your hands well before touching the film, because oil from your finger goes onto the film, it will not come off, and you will have fingerprints there forever. Now, as far as settings go, you set your printer to monochrome on film or paper, depending on your printer, what setting you have. But set it for monochrome or grayscale. There'll be some setting on the paper, on the printer. Quality you set for very good or best. And the film should come out almost dry when you print. And if it does not come out dry, if you find that it has got too much of liquid on the surface, what it means is that your printer is putting too much ink onto the film. So in that case, you need to change your quality setting from best or very good to good or to standard setting. So it will put less ink on the film. It will come out slightly sticky, but it will dry in 5-10 minutes. But if you find there's too much liquid on your thing, then there's something wrong with your setting. Then when you're storing the negatives, you store them in a box with interleaving plain white paper so they don't stick to each other and they don't get marks. So anytime you want, you can reuse them for various other kinds of printing work. Now, when you make the print, this is what you need to do. You place the paper side, coated side up in the printing frame and place the film coated side down on top. Just like you do black and white contact printing with the enlarger. Place the heavy glass on top and expose it to daylight or UV light for 10 minutes to 1 hour. Now, it's very difficult to establish what is the correct exposure because you can't see the UV light. So it's a guess. So the only way you can do it is make test strips. So what I do normally is I cut up one sheet into strips of 1 inch wide or 1.5 inches wide. And I try first 10 minutes, then I try another one for 20 minutes, another one for 30 minutes, and then see which one gives me more or less what I'm looking for. Then I have an idea, under this particular distance, this particular light, this is the exposure. You wash it in the water, a tray of water, running water for 10 minutes till the yellow stain goes. You will see the water itself becomes yellow. So you wash it maybe 3, 4, or 5 changes of water, and you find the water will be clear after some time. That means the coating is all gone and you can dry the print. It will dry, and as it dries, it will become dark blue in a few hours. Now, if you want to be instantly happy and you don't want to wait for a few hours, you can use a teaspoon of hydrogen peroxide in the final wash. And instantly it will turn blue within a fraction of a second. And you can then dry it. Hydrogen peroxide, basically, you can buy it in any drugstore. It's very cheap. And it's used in all beauty parlors for hair dyeing and things like that. And you can just need to put a teaspoon of it in the last wash, and it works well. But otherwise, you don't have to do that. You can leave it alone. It will dry by itself. If you do everything correctly, you should get a print that looks something like this, with some nice highlight, shadow detail, and looking decently sharp. So if everything depends on how you start from the negative. If your negative is good, your print will come out good. So you can see here the shadow detail. And also, if you notice, the lighting is contrasty. It was taken in the evening, So that also helps a bit. Now you can also tone it. Toning is a process where you can change the color of your print, Cyanotypes people think are blue, but they don't necessarily have to be blue. There can be many other colors of cyanotypes. What you need to do is go and do a process called toning of the print. You pre-soak the print in water till the paper is soft. That normally takes maybe 5, 7, 10 minutes. Just plain water. But you need to soak it evenly so you don't get patches. You can try black tea. Your Lipton's tea bag. 4 or 5 tea bags, put a liter of water, let it soak for a while. Take out the tea bag and use the tea. And you can tone it using tea. It will give you some nice brown, warm tones. You can then, if you like, you can bleach it for 3 to 15 minutes, depending on the paper, before you tone it. Now, bleach, you don't have to use. I don't use bleach. I just let it tone. But sometimes you might find in certain times when it does not tone properly. So if you need to bleach it, you can bleach it for even just a minute or 2 minutes. It helps to break down the cyanotype chemicals and it will help the bleaching process. The bleach that you can use is what you have in your house, what you put in your washing machine for clothes. Just a teaspoon of that in a tray of water. But it acts very fast, so you can't leave your print in there for too long. It will bleach completely. So just 1 or 2 or 3 minutes. What you need to do toning is an active agent called tannin. Tannin is something you'll find in wine or in tea. It's a chemical that helps to break down the cyanotype chemicals and give you the color. You cannot use organic or flavored tea. That will not work. And depending on the strength of the tea, that's what gives you the color of the toning of the print. Now, like cyanotype toning, again, it's a very uncertain process. And sometimes you get lovely results, sometimes it's a disaster. But the good thing with this process is that you don't go wrong much. Now this is an image that has been toned in tea. Now it has been toned a little too much, so it has become a little darker brown because it was toned for 10 minutes. But if I'd cut the time to say 5 minutes or 4 minutes, it would have looked a little lighter. It looked slightly more like a sepia print. But it all depends. The thing with these processes is that there is no fixed result. It just depends on what you like and what you do, and every print is different. So this is an image I shot in Venice a few years ago on a Nikon, which I took out and printed. You can also do coffee toning by using instant coffee. You can use instant coffee, you get a blue-black result with a nice white highlight. 4 to 5 spoons of coffee in 1/4 liter of hot water, and then add up cold water for 1.5 liter solution. Coffee takes longer to tone than tea. It takes maybe 30 minutes to 60 minutes. Again, depending on the coffee that you're using. And you wash it well after toning and dry it flat. Now, the thing with toning is that both coffee and tea is that if you leave it too long, your white border will also change color. It will start becoming brownish or yellowish, depending on what toning you're doing. Now, the only way you can prevent that is not to leave it for too long. And secondly, wash the print very well after toning. So as you wash, you'll find the white will slowly come back. But in many cases, it does not come back as pure white. It will come back as a slightly toned border. But it still looks nice, So again, if it does not tone, try a bleach bath, as I mentioned earlier, for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and then the toner. You can also use many other toning agents. Some people have tried wine. Some people have tried fruit juice. All these things work, So it's just, you can play around with whatever you like, but they all give very different results, There are some problems with toning. One is fading. Too much bleach and it will fade. So bleaching is, you have to be very careful. You get blue circles. Now these blue circles are basically air bubbles. So when you put your print into the toner, you have to make sure you insert it evenly and there are no air bubbles anywhere. Because once you get the air bubbles, there's nothing you can do. Those areas will remain blue. Like I said, if it is not toned, try a bleach. The shadows are washed out. You need to start for toning with dark prints, darker than normal. Only then when you tone it, the color will become lighter and it will look nice. If you start with a print that is underexposed or correctly exposed, it might look too light in the end. And you can experiment with different papers as well. Different papers give you different results. There is something called wet cyanotypes. These are cyanotypes that are produced when the paper itself is wet, exposed when the paper is wet. Basically what you do is you follow the same process. You put your paper there, you put your print negative on top, and then you can put things on top, like flowers or any of these things, leaves or anything. And then you can pour on a liquid solution, or you can spray a liquid, for example, vinegar, because something like vinegar will react with the chemicals, and you get some unusual colors. And you can put various objects also. This is what it looks like. This is your paper. It's got some flowers. It's got some leaves. It's got those small little yellow things are chili powder flakes, which I got from a Domino's pizza. And then those other brownish long things are some seeds, cumin seeds, I think, from the kitchen. Now I used a little bit of vinegar in a small spray bottle with water. And when I sprayed it, you will see in the center that some patches of blue and green have started coming. That's because the vinegar is reacting with the chemicals. So now you get a range of colors, light blue, dark blue. It all depends on what you're using and how long you keep it. Some people even put soap foam, on top, and the soap foam keeps spreading, gives nice bubble effects. And it's a very interesting thing to try out. This is the print that came from that previous. This was how it looks when I made the print. This is how it looks when the print is made. So again, you get very different. The more you expose it, the more detail you get, or you simply get a shape. But if you notice here, the background is not uniform blue. It's all got all kinds of designs and patches and shadows. And if you get wrong, when you're doing cyanotypes with plants or leaves, if you increase your exposure and the leaf is not very thick, you can get the pattern of the leaves, the inside pattern. As, as you can see here, you can make out a little bit of the inside of the leaf with the ribs. Here again, this is a wet cyanotype because you can see those dots. They're all chili powder, and the bluish stain is not uniform. It's got vinegar on it. This is another example. But this time I used turmeric. I put turmeric into liquid water and sprayed it, and then I put dilute vinegar on it. So again, you can see, all those round dots. That's all little bubbles of turmeric liquid. Now this is a double exposure. This is the steps are actually shot in Oman, in Niswa, in the old fort in Niswa, in daylight. I made a negative out of it, and then I added the flowers on top. I made a contact print with the glass. On top of the glass, I put these little flowers, and then exposed it. So this is what the result was. So you can do things like this with multiple exposures, or whatever you like. The same thing with turmeric. This is turmeric mixed with vodka. Of course, the vodka costed more than the turmeric, but anyway. And you get this yellow on the paper. And then in the center, I coated it a second time. Once the turmeric had died, the paper was light sensitive. I went and coated it with the cyanide type chemical in the center only. And then I put the flowers only in the center. So you get a little pattern with a yellow border and the blue in the center and the plants. And this is the final result. You don't have to have straight borders. If you notice the negatives that I showed you, they had straight borders. Now this is an example where you don't need straight borders. You can have, wavy borders, and they also look nice. You don't need a straight border at all. Especially with subjects like this, it looks quite nice. Now you will find there are some images that lack contrast, Whatever you do, they look flat, especially when you have subjects like this, with sun and beach and things like that, or buildings. You can increase the contrast after exposure by adding 5% potassium dichromate to the water. It's a liquid. You can need to buy potassium dichromate and make 5% solution. And a 5% solution is basically 5 grams in 100 cc of water. So 5 grams in 100 cc is equal to 5%. So you can add a little bit of that, few drops, into the wash water, and you'll find the contrast will increase. So then this kind of images, it helps a lot. You can see here there's an effect of excess liquid at the time of coating. You can see those patches at the bottom. That is because of the liquid, not smearing out at the bottom. You can also do printing with instead of using a negative, you can use a positive. Now this is basically a positive that was printed as a cyanotype. So the image came out on paper came out as a negative. And the tones are reversed. What should be black has become white, and what should be white has become black. But again, with a subject like this, it could be interesting, It just depends. So you can just experiment around with these things. This is an image which is more simple. It's got lines, it's got contrast, and not too much of detail. But if you expose it correctly, this kind of images can look quite nice. This is almost perfect. It's not too light, it's not too dark. Now, you can use these basically in several applications, like you can use it as a print for framing. You can make postcards. I've seen some very pretty postcards made out of it, bookmarks, or you can put it onto t-shirts, you can put it on glass, ceramic, wood, etc. There's really no limit to what you can do with it. If you get interested in alternative processes, there are many others you can also try, like gum bichromate. Gum bichromate is basically somewhat similar. You take a sheet of paper, coat it with potassium dichromate 13%, and then once it is dry, you make a contact print using a positive image. So the print becomes negative. So once you have a negative print, you just coat it with watercolor paper, and then you wash it off and you get a print. Similarly, with gum oil, if you do the same thing with gum oil, the only thing is to use a negative, and then you get a positive print. But here you coat it with gum arabic mixed with dichromate. So the gum arabic makes the ink, oil ink stick to the paper, and you can get some very beautiful prints. The thing with these things is that initially when you're learning, it's a bit frustrating, because you don't get the results. But with time, you'll find that you become quite good at it. The same way salt prints. These are basically silver nitrate prints that you coat a piece of paper with liquid silver nitrate, let it dry, expose it, and you get very, very beautiful black and white prints. And some of the salt prints that I have seen are really fantastic. Only thing is, it's something you should try in a dark room and not at home, because if you spill silver nitrate, it leaves a black mark in your wash basin or wherever you're working. It will never come off. So you won't be too popular with the wife, So if you want to try it in a dark room. Anthotypes is basically making prints using flowers. You can take many of these flowers are light sensitive. If you take them and sort of grind them up and you get a liquid that comes out of the flowers, use that to coat the paper. It's a very low ISO. It's not sensitive to light much. And it takes you maybe 10, 12 hours to expose. But they make very interesting prints. You can just coat the paper, put a negative or put some other flowers on top or whatever, leave it out in your balcony for half a day or one day or come next day. And you just wash it and dry it, and you get beautiful colors, depending on what flowers you have used. The last one, which is what I'm trying actually at the moment, is bromoil printing. This is again an old process from the late 1800s, early 1900s, where you take ink and you make a print on paper, bleach it, and then you use oil paint or oil ink, lithographic ink, to bring back the image with a brush. And if you do it properly, you get some of the most beautiful prints that I've ever seen, Again, this is something where it's much more popular, and now more and more people are trying it in Europe. And especially in UK, there's quite a big group that is now actually doing this. And there's even a bromoil society now. And it's very interesting, because the only problem with this is that the materials are very hard to get. You need special brushes, and there's only 2 manufacturers in the world who make those brushes. And the ink you have to get from a guy who produces lithographic ink. But if you can do those 2 things, and you need a photo paper which is sort of okay for bleaching and inking. But if you can do that, you can get some very lovely results. So if you're looking for more information on these processes, have a look at Facebook. There's an alternative photography group there. They do a whole lot of work, and they're very friendly people. So they're always happy to help. And there's a lot of things that I learned there. And or there's a website, which is alternatephotography.com, which is also extremely informative. It's got a whole lot of data on it, on various processes. So if you're adventurous enough to try it, you should have a look at these places. But the best place to start is cyanotypes. They're quite simple to do, and they're easy, not expensive, and you're guaranteed to get some results. So I hope you enjoyed this.